Welcome to Barely Tactical. I'm Sean, this is Nathan, and we have a little bit of a different video for you today. This is more of a public service announcement on the current status of Canadian firearms laws, and more importantly to us, the current status of Barely Tactical. So there have been some major changes, let's say.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, or there will be at least, proposed changes to firearms in Canada under Bill C21. And so I'm gonna...
Yeah, C21 is something that's being tabled. Mind you, at this point, it's not even reached first reading, has to go second reading, third reading. The same processes all bills have to go through. A bit of a disclaimer. I like to think we're both relatively intelligent guys. However, this should not be taken as legal advice. This is purely I like to think we're a pretty average representation of human intelligence. Sub-average human interpretation of the laws as they stand now and how we have to work within them.
Yeah. So, one of the big changes that is being proposed is a set of red flag laws. Now, what that means is, well, it's something that might sound nice on the outside, but when you kind of do a deep dive, it's a little nefarious. So, red flag laws mean that somebody who exhibits, and it's kind of a broad range, they exhibit almost signs of maybe mental distress or something like that. They can have their firearms taken away from them. Somebody can call in and say, hey, like this person, I didn't like how they said good morning. Let's have their firearms taken from them. In which case, then you have to go through a process to get them back through the court of law. The issue with this is that it doesn't take into account any, I'll say like malicious or like wrongdoing, I guess, in terms of this. I mean, there are such a wide variety. It could be you had a breakup, and that might constitute, they've had a bad breakup, we need to take their firearms. Oh, they've lost their job. Well, obviously they're mentally unstable now, we have to take their firearms from them. So, I don't know.
Yeah, there's quite a litany of potential red flags. Some of them do bear some merit. Any history of domestic violence would be a reason not to own a firearm. So, not to give the bill any sort of thumbs up. There are a couple things that make a little bit of sense amongst a pretty muddy pool of other things.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest problem is that this is almost a guilty until proven innocent style of confiscation. Of course, if somebody is exhibiting mental health issues or something like that, like real severe, it might be, something like that might be warranted. This is too blanketed. I think it's too generic. This is, it's a red flag. Yeah, so take that as you will. I'm sure there are many varying opinions on that, though.
Mm-hmm. The second and potentially most impactful layer to this is the ban on handguns. And while it isn't an outright ban, it's banning transfers from business to person and person to person. Select businesses with the appropriate reasons can continue to transfer pistols for movies, police security forces, etc. But that ultimately kiboshes shooting handguns for the average Joe. There are some potential exceptions, and I don't have the full list of them, nor do I rightly understand the particulars, but IPSC might be saved if it falls under the Olympic shooting kind of sport. Olympic shooters might get a pass, but I don't know about you, I'm not that good.
Well, another thing to consider too is that there are two different classifications, well, technically three, but there's two big classifications of firearms license in Canada. And with certain scary rifles already being taken off, now that handguns are gone, there's almost no point to having a restricted firearms license. I'm trying to think, like realistically, there's still some holdouts.
There's some short-barreled rifles, but essentially it limits the restricted license to a couple compact rifles. AR-15s have already been kiboshed with the OIC in May 2020, and with this limiting handguns, it kind of almost eradicates the purpose of having a restricted license.
Yeah. The next big part is that long guns will be limited to 5-round capacity for magazines.
But Sean, how are they going to do that?
That's a great question. They don't know. We already have a hard cap on what you can have in semi-automatic firearms in Canada. But the fact that this was proposed as 5-round max on long guns and not just semi-automatics or things like that, that brings into question things like the Enfield. The Enfield rifle is in Canada. There's so many of them.
Millions, and that's not an exaggeration. There's millions.
Everybody brought them home. They shot all the surplus. they all have 10-round magazines.
What about Grandpa's lever gun?
Yeah. Or yeah, especially if it's a tubular magazine or something, you can't cut the barrel and tube off and just get a small, like that's silly. Things, there were holdouts like the Garand for the semi-automatic. Obviously, you can't really modify that clip, so it's something that's really going to impact a lot of fire. I think this is almost one. I don't have handguns, and I sympathize with people who do because that's terrible. Yeah, but in terms of long arms, I mean, I've got a lot of those, and I know a lot of people have firearms that are going to be impacted by this. So.
Well, some examples people have brought up, rotary magazines, like a 1022 Ruger. Mm-hmm. How do you, and it specifically said permanently alter, so a rivet will not be an adequate restriction.
Yeah.
How do you limit a rotary magazine? How do you limit a revolver cylinder? Because they're non-restricted long gun revolvers.
That's
Are
true.
they going to weld one of the chambers up and
seal it? Like what?
Seal it? Like the logistics are going to be pretty complicated, and I'm not sure how that'll be implemented. And the fact that it has to be done professionally, that's a lot of money on our end. If you have to go to a gunsmith and get even 5 or 10 guns modified, gunsmiths aren't cheap.
And the concern is too is that because it seems that there's almost been so little thought in this, is that they're like, oh well, just turn it in. Now it's prohibited. It can't be pinned to 5 or it can't be permanently altered. I guess it's prohibited now, which goes for so many 22s and things like that. It's heavy. So that is one that might affect us.
Pretty widely. Yeah. I may have misspoken saying the handgun ban be the most profound. There's more long gun owners in Canada, I think, by far. Personally, having hung out at a firearms retailer, we won't say the name out loud, I've watched personally several more senior collectors just drop off their entire collection and say, hey, gun laws are getting too complex for me. I don't want to end up in jail on accident. Just count me out. And they're trading in all their stuff, getting a bit of pocket cash, and just riding out into the sunset. They're done with the sport.
Yeah.
And that's upsetting to see.
It's very upsetting to see, and because these people want to be good, upstanding, law-abiding citizens, but
they were already law-abiding citizens.
And if we could skip ahead, the laws also seem to be a little, we'll say, fluid right now. Things are changing constantly, so it's a struggle to more or less have to police yourself in terms of the ever-changing list of laws. Even with the OIC, we saw firearms being added to that retroactively, I believe. Mm-hmm. So if something was like, oh, well, this didn't make it on the list for a shooting, and then you have to look at your phone and be like, oh, now it is, and I'm outside with the prohibited, which is obviously something that nobody wants to do. You don't want to be transporting something and realize, oh, this is illegal now.
Yeah. So. No, riding off the tail end of that, you really have to be your own advocate. You have to conduct your own research, and it's ultimately on you. Like, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Sean.
There's some anxiety behind that. Because again, the people who are legally owning firearms are usually, and I will say usually, but I'm usually meaning like 99 to 100%, the people who want to follow these laws and not rock the boat or, be caught in possession of something they shouldn't have just because it was changed the next day.
Like, I couldn't imagine going to jail over a technicality, especially trying so hard. You've done the licensing, you've done the safety course, you pay a gun club fee, you do the daily background checks, you're doing all the things to stay on the right, and then, oops, this thing's prohibited now, I didn't know, throw the shackles on.
And, well, especially throw the shackles on, if you look into firearms laws and such, and like the penalties that come with breaking them, they're hefty. It's not just like at least you'll know for next time. There's
lifetime weapons ban, lots of minimum sentence, I believe 3-year minimum sentence or multiple of them.
Yeah.
That's life-changing for an honest mistake.
Yeah. But, yeah.
So I guess plans going forward, how will Barely Tactical navigate this new world? Well, we're doing our best to stay educated and up to date ourselves, and to kind of keep alive. I've actually taken the leap of faith, assuming my transfers go through, and have acquired 3 additional restricted firearms, and have actually joined a gun club much closer to home. My previous one was about 2 hours away, which made visits a little, would you say, logistically complex.
Yeah, inconvenient at least.
At least, so I've joined a gun club that's actually 30 minutes up the road. So we will be doing some restricted firearm reviews and we're going to keep producing content as long as we can work within the confines of the law and, stay on the correct side of things. We will keep creating content.
Yeah, I mean, we may be poor and just simple souls, but as long as the money holds and we are legally allowed to maintain these, we're not going anywhere. So
our last Barely Tactical Bucket Bullet Challenge winner actually asked us to do a plug for the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights, and I don't think the timing could be any more important. Support your local advocacy groups, your national advocacy groups, and be a conscientious and informed voter. Do what you can on the right side of the law to make the changes you want to see. Please, ladies and gentlemen, don't do anything silly.
Yeah, and if I may just quickly aside to the non-firearms owners, because I know we do have firearms owners and shooters on here. Educate yourself. Mm-hmm. If there's something that doesn't seem right or you heard something, please look into it. There are people calling, we need background checks, and there needs to be training for these, and nobody should have this.
Oh, I heard you could buy a gun with just walk up to the store and you can leave with it the same day.
Oh, there's a gun show loophole. If you do a little bit of ground research, realizing, daily background checks, we do have to do a practical training thing. You can't buy a gun without a license in Canada. There's very easy answers and simple answers to simple questions. Do your best, educate yourself. If something sounds wrong or illegal, it's probably wrong, I'll say. If you heard, my uncle used to buy guns with nothing. Well, used to is probably the part of that.
Yeah.
Things have changed. Unfortunately, no fun pew-pew sticks to show in this one. We thought this was kind of our responsibility to get out ahead of this a little bit and maybe not say our piece, but at least inform. Mm-hmm. So these are going to be voted on in the near future, and we may have update videos. But until then, we're going to keep fighting the good fight, and, we're going to be out there burning powder. So,
while we still can.
While we still can. Even though it's really expensive.
Not free.
Yeah. But until then, keep your sights fixed on Barely Tactical, and we'll catch you next time.